Hi, I'm Mary Wong, and I'm a registered traditional Chinese medicine acupuncturist. And I am the author of Pathways to Pregnancy and your fertility coach. Welcome to my session number 87. And today I'm really pleased to bring with us Dr. Yaakov Bentov. And we're going to talk about metformin and your fertility. But before I do so, let's give a little background about who you are. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Bentov.
My pleasure.
So he has a big giant bio, and I'm going to just trim it down because I know you guys can't take it for too long. But basically, he's very impressive, right? So first of all, he's from Israel, and he has his medical degree from Israel as well as MBA. What a cool combo. He did his OBGYN there, and then he's REI, so a reproductive endocrinologist from University of Toronto. And he's currently at Anova Fertility. And he's also simultaneously a director at the Juno Fertility in Waterloo. Now, he is an adjunct professor in the Department of OBGYN at McMaster University. He's pursuing research in the areas of ovarian function, pathology, infertility, and reproductive endocrinology. He's a member of the Canadian Fertility and Andrology Society, and he's published research in more than 50 peer-reviewed publications and is an editor for the several leading medical journals, including the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism. And so the research that I'm really excited about is about metformin, because as you know, many doctors, even now, put women on it. I say it's kind of like candy, right? For polycystic ovarian syndrome especially. So I guess, for those that do not know, let's talk about what is metformin. So these are my questions, okay? So we'll start off with what is metformin and why or who is it being used for?
Okay, so it's a really interesting story, the story of metformin. First of all, it's a very old medication that was developed in 1927, but even dates back longer. It was used even in medieval times as an extract of the French lilac tree, and was used to treat diabetes long before the medication was actually produced. And it came into clinical practice in 1940s, and initially it was used for the treatment of diabetes, for which it's still the number one medication because of its effect on the ability of the body to make sugar. It slows down sugar production by the liver, so that's why it's so effective. And then around the year 2000, it was introduced into the realm of fertility by several papers. The most important one was published in 2005, where it was proposed as treatment for PCOS. And over the years, it became somewhat of a panacea for PCOS, with more and more amazing things it was supposedly doing. And the things that were going to be induced by metformin were supposedly less androgens, so less hirsutism and all the side effects of which are associated with high levels of testosterone and other androgens in PCOS, in polycystic ovarian syndrome, but also a higher ovulation rate, less miscarriages, less ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. So all those wonderful things were associated supposedly with metformin. Interestingly, only a few years ago, they found out how metformin works. And what they found was very intriguing. They found that metformin works by blocking the electron transport chain, which is the part of the cell that makes ATP, or energy. And because of the fact that the cell doesn't have enough energy, it cannot do things that necessitate energy, like making androgens, like making sugar. So if the cell can make less androgen, less sugar, this is where all the beneficial effects of metformin come from. And the important thing to understand, the embryo and the egg are truly dependent on the electron transport chain to make energy. And if they don't have energy, it might affect your development. So that's what drew my attention to metformin. This is why I started reading and researching metformin. Over the years, there's a lot of studies that were done about PCOS, specifically metformin. There were many large studies that were done that were showing that most of the assumptions were wrong. So metformin with PCOS does not improve the rate of ovulation. It does not increase the chance for pregnancy. It does not reduce the risk of miscarriages. It does help with losing weight. However, it reduces the lean body mass. So you lose muscle. You don't lose the fat. And most importantly, may affect embryo development. And there were some studies that were done on exposing embryos to metformin. When the dose was very high, it just arrested embryo development because the embryo did not have enough energy to develop. However, in a lower dose, in a smaller or a milder exposure, what was found is that it reprograms the embryo's metabolism as an adult. And it was done in mice. It was done also some studies in humans where they were showing that adults exposed in utero to metformin have metabolic issues. So just calls for a bit more caution in light of the fact that it's not as effective as we thought, and also they may have some repercussions. The indication for metformin, to answer your question, is impaired glucose tolerance or type 2 diabetes, not PCOS. If someone has high levels of sugar, that's probably more toxic than having low levels of ATP. And therefore, if there is high fasting glucose, if there's impaired glucose tolerance, then for sure, metformin is a good medication.
Right.
However, only for those cases.
Okay, so meaning like even during pregnancy, if someone has gestational diabetes, that's a good cause for using something like that?
So metformin is recognized as a medication that can be used during pregnancy. However, there's a lot of studies going on. I think the final word has not been said yet. There's 13 clinical studies on metformin in pregnancy. I'm not sure about if everything was tested to a point where that could be perfectly safe at this point.
Okay, so yeah, because I actually don't see it in when someone has gestational diabetes, I see them actually go straight for the insulin shot, right? So not metformin.
That's the gold standard still, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so then, we may have viewers that are currently on metformin through a fertility clinic. So how does one address that? Because, you don't want to defy your doctor, but you're having concerns about what you're talking about. What do we do?
So first of all, you need to find out why metformin was prescribed. If the indication was impaired glucose tolerance, you did an oral glucose tolerance test and you found to have impaired glucose tolerance, your glucose after drinking the syrup was high or fasting sugar was high, so there's no problem. So that's for sure the indication. If it was just prescribed because of PCOS, that should be questioned, especially if you're not obese. If you're lean, you likely don't need metformin, and that should be questioned. However, even if you do have impaired glucose tolerance, the way to perceive metformin is a temporary solution, just until the change in your lifestyle, the change in your diet, the change in the amount of exercise that you do, bring down your weight, bring down your amount of fat tissue, and improve your insulin sensitivity to the point where you don't need metformin. That's definitely a really bad long-term solution. This is only temporary until the rest of the measures you take become effective.
So then, do you think there's any negative consequence if let's say they're just preparing for an IVF cycle, and so they're taking it for, X amount of time, so it's not long-term? You think that will also cause deleterious effects with regards to embryo quality, with regards to actual outcome?
Yeah, I wish I was able to answer those questions. Studies are probably on the way. We did some studies on mice, and we found that there are changes in the way that those cells act. But we unfortunately we're not able to continue the studies to a point where we'll have a definite conclusion. But for sure, the studies that we've done with short exposure show the similar set of events happening in mitochondrial function. This is where the electron transport chain that I've mentioned takes place, its action. Definitely, we found changes that suggest that the assumption is true. that the cell's metabolism is changed by the exposure to metformin to result in less ATP production, so less energy, less available energy for the embryo, and more of the free oxygen radicals.
Which is exactly, by the way, the opposite of what we want, because when we're looking at women's health and the egg health, the number one thing that we're concerned about is cellular health, cellular energy, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So for those watching and who are on metformin, this is something to question with your doctor, as Dr. Bentov is explaining. And is there a specific, I cut you off, so I'll let you speak in a second, but before I forget with my short-term memory, is there like a specific research paper that you can just name so that our patients, our viewers can actually look it up and then give it to their doctors and say, hey, I would prefer not to do it because of this, so that they're coming with evidence? Because again, still a lot of doctors are using the metformin protocol, for sure. We see it all the time still.
So there's a paper we wrote a year ago. The title is "Should Metformin Be Included in Fertility Treatments?" So it's an easy title to remember. And that summarizes all the research on metformin, all the facts on metformin, which are currently known. So that will be a good start. It's a way to start the discussion with your doctor.
Perfect. Yeah, that is the best, because doctors, of course, like other studies, right? Rather than just, I don't want to take it because I think it's harmful. They're not going to take to that. And, you're not wanting to make an enemy. Of course, if you're in Toronto, and if you can, you could, of course, see Dr. Bentov. But if you're not in Toronto and if you're in the States, sure, you can come this way. But certainly you can speak to your doctor and perhaps, shift their mindset in their utilization of metformin. Right?
Absolutely.
Anything else to say about that?
Well, it's always, you should always remember that the best way to deal with such problems is always the natural way of changing your diet, eating healthy, losing the carbs, and exercising. That's the way to go. Metformin is just a patch, temporary solution until the other things you do take over.
But then how about, we're talking about how even the lean PCOS, so people with polycystic ovaries, and the doctors are still putting them on metformin. How can they go and tell their doctors, I want to be off, and then, also feeling empowered, like I want to be able to do something about it's not like they want to lose weight, right?
Yeah. Well, we need to remind ourselves that the indication for metformin is not PCOS. It's impaired glucose tolerance. So you cannot prescribe metformin unless you proved that there is impaired glucose tolerance. The way to do it is with a 2-hour oral glucose tolerance test, where you come in fasting, and then they test you while you're fasting. They check your sugar levels, insulin levels, and then they give you a syrup that contains a lot of sugar. And then 2 hours afterwards, they retest your sugar levels and your insulin levels. And that's the only way, clinical way, not scientific, clinical way, to prove if there is an impaired glucose tolerance. And if there's not, there's no indication for metformin. It's absolutely unnecessary. It's not going to help. If anything, it may give you some really nasty side effects.
And it does. We see it, right? So, yeah, thank you for reminding us to say that, because, of course, there's actually a comment. I was 130 pounds with 0 glucose issues. All of this drives me batty. Oh, okay. So that's a comment, not a question. Let's see. Is there an actual question? Let's see. I took metformin during my fertility treatments. Oh, she's so sad. She missed the beginning. Okay, you can watch it later, Christina, but thank you for chiming in. If you're still on metformin, then this is where you can create an opportunity to talk to your fertility doctor and see if you can shift this and, add in the research. And like I said, unfortunately, a lot of doctors are not necessarily fully up to date on the current research. That's really unfortunate. And Dr. Bentov certainly is. That's why I included you in my book, Pathways to Pregnancy. I talked about this. And in fact, Dr. Bentov was so kind to let me sit in his office and record my interview with him for like over an hour. So I'm really thrilled to have you back and telling everybody live about what I've discovered. And that was news to me when I was interviewing you at the time for the book. So thank you for that. So let's see. All right. So yeah, there basically what you're saying is there's nothing else to use. It's just about diet and lifestyle in place of, right? Is
Yeah,
there anything
we
else?
did. We did some. We looked at some supplements, which can. One thing we should remember, and this is a very common mistake. Metformin does not improve insulin sensitivity. This is something that we often hear as an indication. Metformin doesn't do that. The way metformin works is by lowering the rate of sugar production. There are some supplements that may have the potential to improve insulin sensitivity. One of them is alpha lipoic acid, which shows some promise, and it doesn't have the same side effects or the same mechanism of action as metformin. So that might be an aid to the
Right.
fact that you're going to change your diet, lose weight, and exercise, which
Yes.
is the main thing you need to do.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And but not for those that are slim. So for a person that's slim, they're put on metformin really for no reason.
Absolutely.
Is there something else they can do, because you're not really looking into losing weight, right?
Yeah,
So
well, you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the treatment? For PCOS, the purpose of the treatment is to get the person pregnant. And there's other ways, there's other medications, really good medications, really good means of treatment. Metformin does not improve the rate of ovulation. It does not increase your chance of getting pregnant. It's a way to treat insulin resistance. So if you don't have insulin resistance, you don't need metformin. It's very clear, very simple.
yeah, and that's it. End of story.
That's the story.
Okay. How about myo-inositol?
Myo-inositol is one of the supplements that shows some promise in improving insulin sensitivity. I'm not aware of too many studies that were comparing myo-inositol with other supplements or metformin. But again, it's an aid to the main goal of the treatment, which is for those who do have insulin resistance, is just losing weight.
Mm-hmm. See, it's always back to good old school, old-fashioned ways. And unfortunately, a lot of people want the quick fix. And really, it's about putting in the time and effort and consistency, living healthily with good dietary and lifestyle changes and moderate exercise. These are all simple things, but we overcomplicate it. But however, common sense, as Brendan Burchard says, is not common practice, unfortunately. But
yes.
I don't think, we all know now, metformin is not the answer. So please, really reconsider. If your doctor says, hey, let's go on metformin, you will want to redirect that conversation. And as many of you know already who've been around the block with regards to fertility clinics, you are actually having to be your own advocate, right? So I really advise that you do so. And so thank you so much for your time, Dr. Bentov. Is there any other words of advice or anything that you want to add before we finish up?
Just live healthy.
Yes. That's what I praise all the time. So thank you for saying the same thing. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here. And I'm just going to close off. And I just want to let you guys know that on Sunday, I'm going to be doing my second live fertility circle. So it's a monthly thing. And the goal is not just to provide you more information, because this is what I do anyway every week with you all and with my book, Pathways to Pregnancy, that you should all read and get anyway for some hope. But really, the goal behind this monthly live fertility circle is, number one, create community that is safe. Number two, when I provide information, it's not just information, it's actually transformative stuff so that you can live your life wholly and feeling complete in the here and now, not just when you actually have a baby. So please do join me. And this month, for the next, I guess, couple of days, you have your chance of getting on it for $4.99. Okay, so normally it's $29.99, which is a big steal anyway, because to consult with me is a lot more. So you don't have to be with me directly. You will be in a group, but you could be in the comfort of your own home. It's this Sunday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll do more of like a lecture style for the first hour and enlighten you about energy and your eggs. And then the second hour will be Q&A to your heart's content, okay? And you can just let it rip. And, you know, the questions that you don't even want to share out loud with anybody or to your doctor or to your friends, you can ask me. I won't laugh at you. Well, we can laugh together, but I won't laugh at you. So please join me. It's marywong.mykajabi. You know what? I'm going to have to put the link down. I'll post that up after. And so, yes, please join me. I can't wait. I can't wait to see you there. And otherwise, next Wednesday as well, you can check out my next post. And of course, you can go through all my previous posts because there are now 87 posts. All right. So thank you again for being here, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Bentov, for being here with us. And I really appreciate your time. And what I do here is to really give back to our community because guess what? You guys need it and you deserve it. So thank you and have a great night. Love you all.